Hi, everyone. Thank you so much and welcome for tuning in. Today, I am Kaylani Mayo, the moderator for today's group discussion. I am here with Sam and Grace, who are theology majors at Vanguard University, as well as Alessandra, who is a kinesiology major. Today, we will having a group discussion based off the movie The Hong Konger, which in a nutshell highlights Jimmy Lai and who Jimmy Lai is. Jimmy Lai was a guy that went to Hong Kong, moved to Hong Kong at the age of 12. And from there, he went from working factories to owning factories to producing one of the biggest media production companies in Hong Kong. And from there, he was the number one. He had the Apple Daily News, which is the number one newspaper in the Chinese language for pro-democracy. And then from there, he became a political activist in fights for pro-democracy in Hong Kong. And today we'll be discussing that movie, the documentary, with Sam, Grace, and Alessandra. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick off with the first question towards Sam. Sam, why don't you go ahead and just kick us off with the first question, which is, how does Jimmy Lai's use of media promote democracy in Hong Kong, highlight the role of free press in protecting democratic values?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very inspired by how he started his own newspaper in order to use his voice to speak, yeah, boldly for democracy and for freedom. He was very passionate about freedom, so he didn't care about the consequences of his voice trying to be shut down or him getting, arrested and different things like that. He was just very, very bold and intentional about using the newspaper specifically for speaking the truth, because he noticed that a lot of people's voices were being silenced because they were afraid to speak out against like the communist um, government, I believe. So, so yeah, he was truly inspiring to me that he talked about not having fear and just standing up for what he believed in by using media and that form through the newspapers specifically.
No, that's really good. And then, Grace, do you have anything to say and add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, Apple Daily acted kind of like a watchdog in Hong Kong. It like held leaders accountable and exposed kind of like the corruption, even when other ordinary citizens and people wanted to stay silent. But I feel like the power of exposure gave those citizens like the courage because their stories were then seen worldwide and couldn't be hidden. He often pointed to like I feel like America's First Amendment as a model showing how free press is the foundation of all democracy, really. And I feel like the film makes it clear that without free press, democracy quickly weakens and is really fragile. Like when Apple Daily was shut down, it symbolized how fragile freedom really is, because without truth, we have no democracy.
Yeah, well, that's really good. And then, Alessandra, what about you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I look up to Jimmy and the way that he used this use of media through freedom of press. It just expressed our amendments, and he stood up for what was right. Even in the backlash and even in everything that he went to. I think the freedom of speech. He really took advantage of it. I think sometimes people, when they are receiving, harmful remarks or all these things, they'll back down, but he just took a step forward, and his boldness was an act of peace throughout the whole world. And it gave people the power to also react and protest in a peaceful way as well. And probably even gave them the ideas to use their amendments to their advantage and to continue to spread the truth. So.
No, that's really good. And obviously, we go to school here in the United States, more specifically in California. So this film, it shows how fear is used as a political weapon to silence opposition. Do you guys see any similarities or parallels in our democracy in the United States? Why don't we go ahead and have Alessandra, want to go ahead and start us off?
Yes, so I think I do see a lot of parallels within our country. I think the main one is probably social media. I think there is a lot of agendas that the government has, and despite what people believe in, there can be a lot of censorship or, violence and things that happen that will cause people to, stop expressing what the truth is. And I think about, yeah, like I said, especially like social media, like a lot of people will take down their posts or the government will censor certain things. But I think that through violence and through these things, responding in a negative way will cause just even more chaos. And the framing of democratic leaders was also something that was very big in the film. And I think how Jimmy Lai, he, in spite of what was happening to him, he constantly had a target on his back, but he was able to speak up with the boldness despite like the agendas that people were putting against him.
That's really good. What about you, Sam? Do you have anything else to add on to what Alessandra said?
Yeah, absolutely. I think social media is a big one, but I think censorship
Mm.
and just lack of privacy in general is a huge problem. Even if you like look up certain political topics on something like ChatGPT or like an AI service, it won't give you certain information. You know, it refuses to give information on certain topics. But also, whatever we're doing on the internet, whether we're in a private browser or not, is completely followed. And yeah, like we're constantly getting advertisements based off what we're searching and what we're even talking about, you know, like our microphones on our phones or
Mhm.
listening to us or because I've even like had difficult conversations with people and then get an ad for like, oh, maybe you should consider therapy or something. Like, man, this is
Yeah.
kind of sad, you know, kind of scary. But I think just lack of privacy, um, to sum it up, would be a huge issue that I think is parallel to the film. Um, just I think just control from the government, maybe.
What about you, Grace? Do you see any parallels or similarities as well?
No, I mean, for sure. I think they pretty much hit the nail on the head, but like it's no like lie that in the film the Hong Kong government used censorship and arrests and like intimidation and silence and opposition as all of those kind of like ways to combat the truth that was coming out. And unfortunately, in the US, I do think that we can see some parallels. I think it's such an interesting society that we're living in an interesting time where like everyone kind of has a voice because we all have social media. And so I think everyone can either spread misinformation or take in misinformation constantly. I know for me, like kind of what Sam was saying, I'll get Instagram ads or like even just with recently all the political stuff that's going on, you're getting so much information from the left and from the right and from everybody that like you don't really necessarily know what's true anymore. And I think because we all have access to social media, even from a really young age, I think the government and different um, outlets, they kind of capitalize on that to send fear-driven messages and fear-driven tactics into our society that kind of do leave us in a place of vulnerability and not necessarily being able to discern truth and kind of can be socially like manipulated or misinformed. And it discourages people from speaking up or from leaning into what the truth actually is. But I think on the flip side of that, the film suggests that the best way to check fear-based power is through transparency. And I think having transparent conversations, seeking transparent information, like that's honest and real and not super one-sided all the time, but kind of like sifting through all of that.
No, that's good. I like how you guys all kind of mentioned everybody, right? So, what is something like how can we stand up for what is right in our nation with the help of our family and friends and getting them involved? So, why don't we kick it off back to Sam? How do you think we can stand up for what is right with our nation with the help of our family and our community?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a heavy, tough question, but I think we definitely can't do it alone. I think building support system, building community that is passionate about resolution, and I think speaking the truth and calling out injustice. Um, yeah, like having integrity with our morals. I think that's huge in our country. I feel like Christians are often seen as judgmental or wrong for, um, you know, like a touchy subject like transgenders or something like that. Obviously, I think the Bible talks about us being made in God's image, and I think we should be proud of who we were made to be. That's my personal belief based off of scripture. Um, but for me, like holding that belief, not that I judge or look down upon anyone, but for me holding that belief, I'm seen um, as judgmental and whatnot. So I think we need to be bold about like our morals and our beliefs in order to, and just the truth in general, in order to see some change. But I think that definitely takes place within community. Um, yeah, joining together.
That's good. What about you, Alessandra?
I would say the same thing. I would say the main way that we can do this is through community as well, as Sam was saying, especially because I think the biggest movements that have made an impact in our country and within the world were all through, it wasn't just one individual, it was through people coming together to protest the truth and to speak the truth. I would say also using our resources, like information that we have, or people that are good at a specific topic like advertising or public speaking. Like these are all different things that we can use to get information out, even like social media. But being cautious about the way we do it, making sure that we're doing it with peace, because I don't believe that um, protesting and doing all these things to get the truth out with violence is a proper way to do it. I feel like it just people retaliate more that way.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say just definitely using the wisdom that we have and the biblical truths as well, of just sharing the love of Christ and allowing His Spirit to show us what ways and ideas that we can grow community and people to get the truth out there.
That's good. Grace, do you have anything to add on to those statements?
Yeah, I think everything they said was great. It kind of reminds me of, in the Bible, it talks about like we need the hands and we need the eyes and we need the ears. Like you can't have a body without like different parts of the body. And I think kind of reminds me of that, where we like need each other and we need like we have to depend on one another, because your strengths are not my strengths and your weaknesses are not my weaknesses, but actually from like both of our voices and both of our talents and both of our gifts, like only can the truth or whatever we're trying to convey be amplified and even louder. Like it's kind of just like screaming. It's like we can be louder together than I can on my own.
Mhm.
And I think even too in the movie, he chose courage in like small daily decisions, which built a pattern for just like standing up for what's right. And I think something I've learned in my life is like leaders go first. And so it's kind of like, okay, I don't know what everyone's feeling, but I'm going to be the first one, and maybe like saying that, hey, I don't think that's right, or whatever that kind of small or big decision is. And then a lot of people around you might actually be like, wait, I agree. And I think the same. And like the same can go for vulnerability. Like once someone's honest, the other person is more likely to be honest and open up. Um, but I think just being together and united, like with our family, with our friends, with our communities, like a message is amplified under like the realms of silence, especially like control and censorship as well. So together, like the close bonds we create can kind of conquer bigger challenges together. So we need each other in order to conquer these things. It's like the government too. Like they can't just do it with one person. You can't just do it with the president. You have to have all these minor parts that can also make things move and go in the right direction.
No, that's really good. I love how you all mentioned God and faith in some sort of way or aspect. So, with that, how does faith and having like a religious backbone shape decision making, similarly to what we saw in the documentary with Jimmy Lai? I'll take it back to you, Grace. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Lai's Catholic faith, like it gave him a moral compass. Like I feel like that's what religion is to everyone. It's kind of your ability to see right and wrong and how to like weigh the cost of different decisions. And that's what guided his choices. And I feel like the film shows how faith gave his suffering a deeper purpose. All the things he endured, there was something that was tied to it, and a why behind it that allowed him to endure a lot of different things and pressures and prison and all of that. And I think his belief helped him look beyond himself, focusing on the good of others and not just thinking of his own life, his own world and the things that are going on with him. But I think the ability to see outside of yourself and fight for something that is greater than who you are. And I think with that, faith and truth, they coexist together, because when you believe in something, that is the truth that you follow. And so it can shape your decision making. And I think that's, I mean, from the film, that's what really got him to do what he did, you know?
No, that's really good. What about you, Sam? What do you have anything to comment on or add to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really loved his just passion for freedom and for others. He definitely put others before himself. And I think when people have faith in their life, I know he mentioned like his wife was Catholic, and I think that's how he became Catholic. Um, yeah, but that it just gives us a moral compass. It gives us values. Um, yeah, he was definitely willing to make a huge sacrifice for the greater good, and I think that's what Jesus called us to do is to lay down our lives for the good of others, for the good, I mean, for the good of the kingdom, for him. Um, and when we like give up our life, we actually find true life. So, um, yeah, I mean, I was sad to see that Jimmy, or yeah, that he is now in jail still, which is pretty sad, you know. But I mean, he was really fighting for something good, for something noble. So I think that that is what people of faith should do in their decision making is sometimes making the hard choices as long as they're standing for the truth and what God desires for us.
Yeah, that's really, really good. What about you, Alessandra? Do you have anything else to add on to as well?
Yeah, I would say like what they're both saying, the main thing that I just keep thinking about is just like the hope that having a faith in Christ will bring. Like knowing that Jimmy, I'm sure like he would constantly just think like this is for a greater good, like for a greater purpose. Like he's not just receiving this persecution and these things for no reason. Like he's doing it because he knows the hope that he has in Christ. And it just gives us that foundation and that eternal rest knowing that like God has our back and despite the things that he's getting thrown at him like he has God to give him the wisdom the perseverance the strength to do all these things and as well in our lives like when we're persevering through the hard times and protesting and fighting for what is good we have a boldness from Christ and I think that's like the best boldness to have like the boldness of Christ and we're able to also share God's love through humility. I think about Jimmy throughout the film, how he was constantly just reflecting the love of God. Like he wasn't cursing people, he wasn't fighting with violence. Like he was constantly humbling himself enough to get wisdom, to get information, but to put it out there for people to hear and to see. And also, just his peace was just evident. Of course, he had that weight on his shoulders, but there was a peace that he knew, like that everything was going to work out in God's will.
No, that's really good. And so we have a few more questions, and something that I want to touch on very briefly is Jimmy Lai. He faces arrest, suppression, financial pressures, personal risk, and we do see in the film that there are some resistance, and there's peaceful versus like um, there's escalation, right? People stay, people leave Hong Kong. If you were in their shoes, what would you do and why? Why don't we go ahead and kick it off to Gracie first?
Yeah, I mean, this is like such a hard question because it's like I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what I would do. I mean, I would like to say that I would make a choice like Jimmy Lai and say that like I would see that the greater good is to stay and to kind of fight that battle and do my best and play my part. But I mean, I can't say like 100% certain. I know that like I have every intention in my heart that I hope that God would give me the strength and the wisdom and the discernment to do that, which I think sometimes there can be discernment in leaving. But in this case, I would hope that I would say, I also think I have like a very big justice meter where like injustice just like really gets me. And so I think my heart would feel very burdened for that. So I think I would stay.
That's good. What about you, Sam? What would you do? Would you stay? Would you leave? What would you do in that situation and why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to say that I would stay and fight like he did in a peaceful way, you know, by continuing to just share the truth and boldly share the truth despite consequence and pushing against the norm and offending people and all that kind of stuff. I would like to say I would do that because I want to be like Jesus, and he was very peaceful in his protests and but very bold standing up for what's right. But I don't know. When I think about my day-to-day life, sometimes like if someone says something that I disagree with, it's hard for me to be bold with them, and because I'm afraid to offend people, you know, I'm afraid to hurt people's feelings, and or I'm afraid to like look stupid or look like the dumb Christian or something like that, you know? So, um, I say that I would stay and do what he did, but I don't know. I mean, I could honestly, I mean, maybe I would stay and conform and and not speak up for democracy. Who knows? It could really go either way, but I would hope God would give me the boldness to stay and to stand up for a noble cause.
Mhm. Right, that's it's such an inspiration that Jimmy Lai was able to like stand his ground in that. What about you, Alessandra? What would you do?
Yeah, I think this kind of just like goes back to all of our other, discussions. I just think about like what Sam was saying, like Jesus and the way that he was, um, giving his testimonies and his sermons and all these things despite what was coming at him. I would love to say that I would say as well, but I know me and I think about like day-to-day life, like just like Sam was saying, like that's a great example. Like I struggle with confrontation. I struggle with, opening up about my beliefs because I think like the culture has made it so normalized to just like hate and bash on people that you don't agree with. And so I think I would definitely have to grow in my confidence and just the way that I am confident with what I am saying and my ideas and my beliefs, just being firmly rooted in the truth. And I think um, that also ties into just being Christian, like firmly believing in what we believe in Jesus and His truth and His justice, His grace, and His mercy, all of those things. And I would say, yeah, I would definitely do my best to stay, but I definitely think it would be a challenge for me to, um, not retaliate and not back down because of all of that pressure.
No, that's really good. So, kicking it off, or ending it off with the last question, in one word or even in one sentence, what is your guys' biggest takeaway after watching the film? Go ahead, Alessandra. Why don't you go ahead and say biggest takeaway?
Man, I would say that's like the hardest question just because there's so many different, things that we can take away from this film. And I think I would say like the main thing that comes to my mind right away is just that the most powerful protests are through acts of humility and love. Because I think about like I keep going back to Jesus, but I just think about how he strategically set out his life to live a certain way so that we can have him as our role model and how his words and his gentleness causes people's hearts to soften. And so I would say that would be my main takeaway, just like acting through love and humility constantly um, with the people that we encounter, but also like coming to Jesus with a heart of humility, asking him for wisdom, asking him for love so that we can get the right information, not just what we think is right. And so I think that would just really shape my whole viewpoint and takeaway from the film.
Yeah. What about you, Grace or Sam? Do you guys have like one word that kind of is like the biggest takeaway from watching the film? Let's go with Grace first.
Yeah, I think the one I have two, which is just courage and conviction. And I think that they both need each other in order to see change.
What about you, Sam? One word or yeah, takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. It was passion for freedom, and standing up for what's right.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, that concludes our group discussion. And thank you, Sam, Grace, and Alessandra, for discussing and talking about Jimmy Lai and his fight for freedom and his fight for pro-democracy. And it's pretty evident about his legacy that he left. And I hope and continue that we all are able to do so after this discussion. But with all that being said, thank you so much for everyone tuning in and hope you all learned something from our panel. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Thank you.